Well, hello everybody. It is Thursday, so we are excited. History in the making as we get together. I'll tell you, are we living in a reality or what? Well, hello. There we go. And now I am meeting myself coming and going, so it's all normal because, we now control space time, or so they say. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Just real quick, kind of my way of just saying hello. Like to speak favor over us all, and nothing missing, nothing broken. Thank you for everyone that who has subscribed. The new subscribers hit 48,000. Who would have thought? You know. But anyway, appreciate it. What we try to do here is make it for a very neutral, happy place where everybody can get together. We have diverse opinions, points of view, but what we found is that it's oh so much sweeter when it is mixed with many different points of view. It is. Any great chef will tell you that. You can just put something in there, and without the spices. So anyway, much love to all of you. So it's Thursday. I am with my probably one of my most favorite couples. And I add Paul and Gaia to that as well. And there's a few others, but Mike and Cindy, how are you? Thank you for coming in on Thursday. I mean, this has been kind of an exciting thing that just metamorphized, but how are y'all been?
We're good. We're good. We're keeping busy like everybody in these crazy times.
They
Yeah,
are.
we are. And I just want to say hi to everybody in the chat and thank them for showing up. It's great. I see Susie Q in there. She said hi, and I like that because I'm a sassy one, and and I'm also sassy Susie. So that name caught me. So good to see you guys. Yeah,
This is
It's
a
all
really great
family.
group of people all the way around. I tell
yeah,
you, just wow. And that's what makes it fun. It's a fun place to be in. It's a fun place to participate. And people always say this. They say that this is a group that really does show love and kindness. And yeah, so thank y'all. So have they chosen the new guy yet?
mm,
I don't believe they have yet, but it should be shortcoming. It should be,
Okay.
oh, maybe
Okay.
within the hour or so.
yeah.
Talking about the new pope, of course.
Maybe
Yeah,
while
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That
we do
that the new- yeah, yeah, that's
it.
what we be, which is interesting. I mean, we go live and this is an inflection point on history.
Yeah.
Because
It
no
is.
matter what your belief, whether you're Christian or not, a Catholic or not, or whoever, the guy still technically has control over, they estimate, 5 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hell
Yeah.
of an influencer.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah. How many do you
absolutely.
influence? Oh, I got 1 million. Yeah, we meet my guy. He's got 5 billion.
I know.
That's a
Well,
lot of
I
influence.
know there's a lot of prophecy kind of tied into all of this and unfolding
Yeah.
prophecy. And last week we asked the question, and I threw out a chart. I asked the question, and I threw out a chart, and the answer that we got was we're in for an awakening, a huge one, a big one. And there's some good things, there's some bad things, and what I see and continue to see is there's going to be a lot of change. It's going to be a little bit like a bowl in a china shop, but we're going to have some change, but it's more up to us. And I love when we connect because I think our energy makes a big difference. We make a big wave, a splash out there because we want something different. All of us have a positive visual for our future. And this helps. These meetings help a lot in what we're co-creating together. It's my 2 cents.
Well, I agree. I mean, we talked right before we went live, that Cindy, you were saying that the charts were showing a major event in July
Yeah.
on the same level of 9/11.
Yeah.
That's just my humbled, you know, layman. When I hear that, so 9/11 shocked our collective consciousness as a species.
Yeah.
We're still living under that effect that happened nearly 20 years ago or plus. and the real ID, the digital concentration camps. This is all the result of the Patriot Act that was enacted after that. So when I hear an event happening in July that is on that same level, wow. I mean, how
Yeah.
would you interpret that?
Well, you know, it was actually Mike that kind of pulled it together. I just did the reading and I said, this is what we have. And
Well,
uh,
Mike, let's hear. I mean,
yeah,
it's
he's the one who
big.
pulled together all the
There's
prophecies.
a lot of things coming together. So if this Pope, especially like if this Pope takes on the name of Peter, or if it is, you know, like one of the gentlemen that's name is either Peter or translates to Peter, then you know we're in for a fun time. You know, because they are, you know, beginning and ending everything with Peter, you
I
know,
just want to go, nah, 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 you know.
it's all planned out, it's all programmed out, and we could say, wow, it's prophecy, it must be the creator. Well, no, it's prophecy, it's part of the script. And you know, even when we look to script you are living out. It's just that simple. But yeah, what will we see when we look at the astrology? That's the real script. You know, that's the natural matrix. So yeah, when you're looking at Jupiter with Ardra, which is a nakshatra, we were talking about that yesterday, and Rahu being together. Ardra, you know, is a nakshatra, so a nakshatra is unique to Vedic astrology, yeah, and so you know it's symbolized by a teardrop, you know, and it kind of like says everything because Ardra is kind of heavy, um, and there's a lot of karma coming to fruition in this time period. So what we are looking at is the same conditions because this Jupiter cycle is every 12 years. So 2 cycles ago, it was paired with Rahu and Ardra. And so that was 9/11 time period. And now we have the same energy in play.
Same
so,
exact thing.
you know, the controllers know this. So their best success lies in starting major operations, major events during these type of transitions astrologically. So this is why we'll probably see something major happen, perhaps with the U.S. and China directly, or you know somewhere else. It could even be you know civil in the U.S. too that we see it with another you know attempt on 47, perhaps, or maybe both.
And I wonder how the India-Pakistan thing interacts, because while you were talking, I see this as a play of gods. You know, you've got the Christian God, and then you have a God that's older than the Christian God, which are the Hindu gods. And now you have the two major players in that religion, in that belief system at war. You have the Christian church. I mean, yeah, they'll be united here for a couple of days, but it's still fractured. Wow. And then you take that into the political arena, we should be seeing, and I think we are seeing the same thing, this fracture.
Mm-hmm. We are. We're seeing it at a level at our level too. I think a lot of people are going through things. They're going through traumas. They're working through whatever they need to work through at home, in their lives, in their bodies. And when we come across these alignments that Mike is talking about, particularly this Ardra Nakshatra is a form of Shiva. And what does Shiva do? Shiva destroys the illusion.
Yeah, isn't Ardra a female entity or a deity?
This is underneath Rudra, under the nakshatras.
Rudra is a form of Shiva, which
Rudra is a form of Shiva.
Rudra is more
Not
of
in this case.
a natural energy, the natural world, storms, tempests, that type of thing. So, yeah, again, we're looking at going into very stormy times and relating to consciousness because Shiva is consciousness itself. So, yeah, it's a lot of revelations, a lot of realizations, and they have to always make distractions for us. So as we start saying things like, well, hey, what about, you know, how much gold was in Fort Knox? Or, hey, what about that guy, you know, that EP Stein guy? We never seen anything come out into public view on that, really. What happened there? What happened?
They just dropped
and you
it.
were just talking about the Homeland Security, the Patriot Act. I saw yesterday they were talking about eliminating that. Here they are talking about eliminating that, and we're going to go into a new 9/11 if that's the case.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and then call me suspicious, but if you're going to drop the Patriot Act, that means they have something already in place that where they don't need it.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They have
I
all
don't know,
things in place. And
And
they
by the way,
did.
you have to give Gene Roddenberry a big high five because how I knew the name Audra was from an episode of Star Trek Next Generation where Picard had to interact with this goddess. Her name was Audra, and she
Oh,
arrived on this planet. And when her arrival came, it came with war, tempest, the whole bit. So the people were freaking out, ready to sacrifice to whatever god they needed to stop all the madness.
yeah. And, it's interesting because right after this alignment, we have another alignment that speaks to newness, freshness, things coming into a positive. So really, Mike was looking at the alignment and he's like, wow, if you look at this right in the middle, we're looking at of this alignment, we're looking at when the energy's peak is July 4th. So, and how many times has July 4th come up? A lot, a lot. We don't know exactly what year, but I keep hearing that. And also in different prophecies, I forgot that nice lady who made the prophecy. It was really scary.
The Japanese tsunami.
Yeah. And she said July 4th as well.
Well, she said July 5th in Japan, which would be our July 4th over here.
Yeah.
Because she saw even 5 a.m. She was, had a vision where she saw the time and it was like 5 a.m. Something that would probably equate to like a 9.5. That literally just changes all the landscape between Japan, Taiwan, and mainland China. Isn't that curious? At a time where, and that gets me thinking, maybe it's more of a bomb. Maybe what she's seeing is some sort of explosion or, because it's interesting. It could be because the Polish psychic Krzysztof Jakowski just came out with a vision that he had in which he sees there being some sort of blockade, some sort of shipping incident over in the Pacific theater between China and the US that ends up involving planes and literal conflict starting. So maybe she was seeing that, and maybe it was some sort of weaponry, or maybe it was even symbolic.
It's odd you're talking about this because just this weekend I was watching a documentary. I did not know this, and if the U.S. is doing it, I have no doubt that China would be right there. They've placed underwater nukes, and the idea is they can let off these nukes underwater. It would resemble an earthquake, but the primary purpose of the explosions are to create the tsunamis, and that would be massive.
Yeah, Putin's talked about those openly for years. Russia having those, and then there's been people with visions of the UK, southern part of the UK, getting flooded because of those. And then Russia's even threatened. They've actually had videos that they've done more than once on Russian news TV showing a submarine hitting one of those nukes off the coast of Great Britain and flooding the whole thing out. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense.
The devastation. Go ahead, Cindy.
I'm sorry. I was
frightening.
Wanting to pull back into this real ID. It feels like there's like this last minute rush as well. And if they cause a whole bunch of chaos, or if they have the real ID ready to go into alignment and they cause a lot of chaos, that's going to be one more reason for people to have to be tracked and monitored and watched and rationed. And that's what I'm seeing. This makes it so easy for rationing. And what are we doing here today? Well, I learned a couple things about it, how we could be a thorn in their side and, not go along with it, but at the same time, not I don't never advocate to do anything that's not nice to people. However, we can push back in a different way, and we can go back. If you've gotten the real ID, unbeknownst, because I didn't know about it, I was busy, life was happening. I just got my ID. I think Mike did something similar, but you can go back to the DMV and you can hand it back, and you could say, I would like a state license, please. And they can give you the state license. And I guess the argument there is it puts us off. And I do believe that there's another timeline that we are trying to catch. I think if we just funnel in and go along with this timeline, there's going to be a problem. But I think if we pull back, there's going to be a better timeline to be had. So when we get a chance, at least I kind of want to go back and say, hey, I want a state issued driver's license, please. I'll do my part.
So, yeah, just so you know, they say a Cardinal Robert Prevost becomes the first American Pope, known as Leo the 14th.
American Pope?
American Pope.
Wow.
Now, this is according to CNN.
Now, that just gets the hair on my arms. That the odds of that. Oh.
Talk to us.
Well, no, the conversations have been in depth on this, that where they were seeing the Pope would be potentially, and the United States was the very last country. As it has been in this cycle, everything is upside down. Everything that we think or what the experts say or whatever, it ends up being almost the opposite. So can you give us a little more background on who this American Pope is, Mike?
Yeah, who is it?
Yeah, that's CNN saying that. So let me see what else I could find for confirmation.
Wow.
Yeah, Robert Prevost. Let's see, I don't see him like speaking to people yet. 33 voting cardinals, obviously they do the white smoke thing because they're literally burning the ballots. This from CNN, it says the new pope is revealed as Robert Prevost of the U.S., first American pontiff in history, will be known as Leo the 14th. And that's all they got listed to that. So is that the case, or are they jumping the gun? I don't know. Let's see if there's.
I don't think so. I think,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly.
I think prophetically, and this is what I saw in my spirit when that was there. I immediately saw the emergence of where Revelation talks about the great whore ascending to the top of religion and politics at the same time. That's what she does. And this is pretty powerful. I mean, and just call this on me, but I found it suspicious. Why did Trump attend Pope Francis' funeral when Trump isn't Catholic? And and they say, well, it was a head of state. Well, yes, no, but I don't know. Where we see a coronation?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, BBC is saying Robert Prevost will appear on the Vatican balcony. Yeah, Robert Francis Prevost, first American Pope. So now they're all running with it. Interesting, because if he doesn't take the name of Peter, then that's not Malachi. Does that just mean it's a new timeline?
Do we make a new timeline? Maybe.
Yeah. I wonder what his theological stance is on things. It'd be interesting to see where he begins to stance on that.
Well, when I searched Robert Prevost, the first thing that came up was liberal. So.
Oh, wow. And Blazing River, very interesting thing. He says, well, we see the seat of Peter to be moved to D.C.
Wow.
There's something there, and we all know it. I mean, this is what the thing is that it's all tied into the real ID. It's all tied in to how religion now merges with the political world. And we know that the outcome of that is not good. It's already set up for this. I mean, I wanted to show y'all a very quick article on this because it tells me you can say, well, we're looking at fulfillment of prophecy. All right, but prophecy is nothing more than a script. And
Mhm.
so if we're following the script, then we're writing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I found this article on the whole idea of how we've now entered into this thing called the electronic concentration camp. This was written by John Whitehead back in January 6th of 2014, 11 years ago. And it gets into how deep this really is. And in this article, he says that if we don't start resisting, then it's over because this is already implemented to
Yeah.
the point that where they can control your thoughts. They can
Hmm.
actually inject thoughts that yours not even your thoughts. And he talked about the fact that we're being tracked, cataloged, and controlled.
Hmm. Hmm.
And just call it my role from a religion taught me that, this is what was all the evidence of the Antichrist. I knew Tim LaVey, who wrote the Left Behind series, um, about back in the day when I belonged to that political organization. But I've had the chance, Lynn and I both sat down and had dinner with him. And although he was well getting up in age, his concern was that he missed the aspect of technology. And when he wrote the series, and that's when the rapture happens, and then the Antichrist, and then the seals are opened, and all we know the calamity. And you can't help but just pull back a little bit and go, all right, so what's really going on here?
Hmm.
I mean, they know us. Someone wrote earlier that we um we are there's a digital avatar of us living. I mean, that's pretty strange when you think about this. So, what's y'all's thought on this? Do you think we're actually living in prophetic times, whether it be one religion or not? Um, Shiva, isn't she the goddess of death and life? I mean, she brings destruction, right?
Shiva is destroys the illusion. So Shiva, they have a big statue of Shiva in front of CERN.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
dedicated it to her, I
Cosmic
believe, right?
Shiva is doing the cosmic dance.
Yeah,
So
it's Shiva is consciousness itself in so many ways. Because ultimately, yeah, we're consciousness just having a physical experience. So, when we want to stop this experience, so to speak, we return to our natural state, which is, not embodied like we are now. And, I think it's such a misconception when people say Shiva is a demon. It's just such ignorance to not really understand that even demon, the word demon comes from daemon.
Isn't it
You know, so
divine one?
yeah, well, daemon, it's interesting when you look back farther, these benevolent nature spirits was the original definition of daemon, a benevolent nature spirit. But what we have with the Vatican, you're just basically electing a new person to be a direct intercessor through to reptilian energies that are really running the show behind the scenes. Everything is obvious. It is kind of obvious too, because the Bible itself says, this control system is Satan's. And then you have Catholic churches, the number one, powerful organization in the world financially, could alleviate all the poverty in the world if they so choose. Instead, they hoard the gold for themselves, and choose their intercessors to then tell their billion plus followers what to do. And of course, people tithe to them and feed them more energy in that way. We were talking today about CERN, which is very, very functional. It is a portal maker. It is opening up doorways for the real demonic entities to come through. But those entities live in the Vatican, and they live in all the organized religion at the top posts, because again, this is Satan's system. So it's just really obvious, but this is why we have fluoride in the water. This is why we have IQs dropping like rocks. They have to keep us dumbed down to believe what they tell, which is easily counteracted with a little study and intuition. As you know, the deeper you go in, you cannot be a believer because you
No.
can't believe what's obviously just a bunch of lies used to control humanity's mind, keep us in a limited mindset. The whole concept of original sin and Adam and Eve. You find Adam in the Sumerian tales, and you also find, Adam in again the Hindu tales too, which both of them are older. And you find the global flood everywhere you see. But in the other tales, like Sumerian and the Vedic tales, instead of making it out like these other entities are literally the creator of the universe, they're known that these are just entities that come and go from here. They are more technologically advanced, and some of them pull the wool or the rug, however you want to term it, but they basically keep humanity from seeing the truth of the situation, which has really only been in the last dominantly, maybe the last 1,000 years, 2,000 years, really since Christianity as we know it has all come about. Because obviously early Christianity was nothing like what we have in place at this time.
Not even close.
No.
Well, and the whole idea of origins, beginnings. I mean, I've done numerous videos on those myself. That the bait is, well, whose origins do you ascribe to? I mean, Christianity has theirs, but they borrowed from the Hebrews. The Hebrews borrowed it from the Samaritans and throughout Mesopotamia. And as you can say, you go back to the Indus Valley, and now you're getting into Asia, the Hindu. And it was always interesting to me when I was a practicing Christian that in the book of Acts, it forbidded the disciples to go into Asia.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of wisdom there. Where did the wise men come from? They came really from
Came from
Persia.
Asia, or
Yeah.
maybe even Sumer, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, the truth had to go underground in the West, because of direct persecution. But you could see everywhere you look, there's these tales of interactions with different beings. Cindy got some channeling last night, which she's not aware of. But I did tape it, and we'll be kind of replaying it to go through it. Our reality is way more bizarre than most people can realize. And, everything is not set in stone. The reason why they want you to think things are set in stone is that we live out and we put the energy into the script that they want playing out, coming into manifestation. They need us to bring it about, because if we start to see other possibilities, it's going to all just disintegrate, in front of them.
Well, I've asked people on my channel, and a lot of Christians, I don't care, you can believe whatever you want. I mean, I come from Christianity, the charismatic side of it, the Pentecostal side, and people have asked me numerous times, well, why'd you leave the religion? And it really comes down to something very simply of what was discovered by George Smith, who was a anthropologist, worked for the Museum of England, when he found the Sumerian tablets. The Sumerian tablets, it's my contention that had they been known 2,000 years earlier, you would have never had the birth of Christianity.
Mm.
The religion of the Hebrews would have collapsed because it comes down to a central point in my theology of Genesis chapter 10. Where did Abram, who just so coincidentally came from what? Ur of the Chaldees, which was the capital of Sumer,
Right.
his family worshiped Inanna. In fact, they think they found the ziggurat that Abram apparently and his family were associated with. And I ask anyone of the Christian faith, explain to me What did Abram meet out there in the desert? We're told it's God, but yeah, it's God. I just don't think it's the one that we think that was there. And then kind of where the rupture really begins to rupture very quickly is that if this was God, who was the God of Genesis, Adam, then that God made Adam's body perfect in its image. So why do you have this new God wanting to put its mark in Adam's body, in this case, Abram's?
Yeah, genetic
That
modification.
would be it. It would
All
be a
that.
desecration of a sacrilege to alter the human body, which was already created by God. So anyway, that's my little theology.
Isn't that
Have,
what they're
have
doing now?
Oh yeah, that's what they're always doing
They're
that.
doing it now.
Genetically modifying. This is the
Yeah.
whole thing behind the black goo, behind this therapy. The M period, R period. The rest of it. It's the same thing. It goes all the way back to then. You know,
Yeah.
um, in vitro fertilization, creation in test tubes. When we could go into World's Fairs, and isn't it funny? Trump announced that we're going to have World's Fairs again. What
Oh
does that
boy, I
mean?
mean, it
That
gets
means we're in the
weird.
middle of a great redo, Hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
but you
tell
know
you,
what the connecting part of that, Michael, is that if you're going to have a redo, there has to be an undo.
yes,
Oh boy. Yeah.
There you
that
go.
that
That's not
that
what I'm talking about.
that starts July. It's really underway already. When you Have you ever read The Giant Cities of Bashan? Have you ever read that book?
I do not believe so.
It's a good. You gotta get one for the library. You get it for like $3-4 used, literally.
Oh.
It's 1870 or something like that. And what's fascinating is listening to the descriptions that this gentleman from England is giving as he's going through Syria, he's going through Israel, he's going through Lebanon, Jordan, and what is he seeing? He's seeing giant cities. This is again, he was traveling through the Middle East in like the late 1850s to like 1870s, and in danger because it was kind of a tribal area, very rugged, a lot of bandits, people would kill you for whatever you had. And so he had to hire people and trust that they were going to keep him alive while he was doing his archaeology. And he's coming upon city after city of that could house tens of thousands to maybe as much as 50,000 people, empty, but intact. And this is now just rocks and desert. But in just 1860s, 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, these were actual cities with houses, stone houses, nobody living in them, but occasionally, some peasant family coming in and living in them. These houses were built for giants. They were stone structures. They had stone ceilings constructed by large, long slabs that weighed so much it would make no sense for humans now to put them in place. You'd have to use I don't know how many mules just to put up an average typical house's roof. Then these all get wiped out, and to the point where there's very little left now. But you had many cities. I think he encountered, if I'm remembering right, literally hundreds of cities that could hold tens of thousands of people that were basically empty. But what would kill people and yet leave the cities perfectly intact?
Well, I'm immediately thinking when you're saying this kind of goes with the Pseudo-Apocrypha, the book of King Og, who
Right.
was the last king of the Nephilim,
Mm-hmm.
the giants, the Raphaim, if you want to go further. And I did a whole series and it was quite interesting because that part of the history of our history has been taken away. And call me suspicious. I love the name. Okay, so if they remove that history, what other history have they removed?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It ain't
if
that long ago. What?
no,
If you go by the story, about 3,000, 3,800 years ago, these giants were here,
no,
and we were food, right?
what if though? What if they weren't all wiped out at that point? What if they were still living?
Bingo.
And what if they were still occupying some of these cities even till, 17, 1800s? It To me, the only thing that makes sense is that they use some sort of biological warfare on them, to wipe out people but leave everything intact. And then they came back later with humans, um, utilizing humans in their wars to wipe out all the structures to the point where, and I'm just assuming that part because they might have actually wiped them out to some degree from directed energy weapons too. It's just interesting because John Levy, if you're familiar with him, he only does one video every Sunday morning, Saturday night, and it's only about 20 minutes. It always leaves you wanting more. But he's been doing videos for a long time. I want to say about 10 years. In our category, he's been doing this a long time. But he touched on one. He didn't say anything last week, but the video he did last week, I know he was thinking the same thing, because these signs all over, like we have it in the American West, the same thing. If you look over to New Mexico, for instance, you could see grid work from the sky. You could see grid work where there obviously was cities. Now it's just rubble and desert, and we've never in our day had big cities there. But it looks like perfectly straight lines, like there were streets, and it's just obliterated. We've seen this ourselves roaming about in Nevada, in New Mexico, and Arizona. Things that just don't make sense. Structures that look to be made out of concrete, but they're kind of like something blasted the hell out of them.
As you were talking, I did a yesterday. Can't believe it's gotten nearly 10,000 views already, but on the underground cities,
Yeah.
that how apparently there are already people living there. And apparently I didn't get the invite. I guess y'all didn't either. Uh, so what are these? Why? What's the purpose? The Titans, the tech Titans, they're the ones with all the money right now. They seem to be hell bent to get off the planet or to build their own survival bunkers, a mountain size. So what's going on? I mean, is it really getting that constraint? I have a friend that was in Congress, and they said the reason why they never really worried about balancing the budget was that it was never intended to be paid back.
Right. Yep.
So if that's the gig, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm feeling a little naked out here. It's like,
Yeah.
everybody else seems to know something.
Well, yeah. So I just looked it up. He was talking about the Mormon conquest of 1852, which
Hmm.
really, look at the Mormons in our American West. And
Joseph Smith,
yeah,
Mormons. Yep.
yeah, 1852, they're told to go supposedly from New York. Eventually, they were in Missouri for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Chicago down to Missouri and then west.
And then west, right? And so in the Book of Mormon, it tells the story of being directed to this one city where the
Hmm.
houses will be, you'll find houses empty. The empty houses will be there waiting for you. Now, you look in Wikipedia when that city started. Well, okay, it was slowly constructed by the Mormons, da 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 da. And no, no, in the Book of Mormon, it says, go to this area and you will find dwellings for you and your families. They're going to be empty. This is the same purge. So, the reality is, and I don't want to get you in trouble by talking about things, but there are certain genetic markers that are always being targeted. There's certain people that that are a threat to the system, And the system's always trying to dumb down the population. It needs the most ignorant population possible in order for its ruse to work. So, if your intelligence is too high, you're a threat. And humanity's on the ascending path right now. So, we're waking up, we're developing abilities that we could see through it. So, they're going to be caught like the emperor with no clothes.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. 1852, this is not far off that
Yeah,
time
no.
when the guy over there in Lebanon, Syria, northern Israel is going about and seeing empty cities. People were just disappeared. What took them? If not some sort of extraterrestrial or ultra terrestrial war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cylinder, I think the tablets with the Sumerians was that, you know, it was Enki and Enlil's mother who was really the geneticist. She was the one who, there were at least 4 or 5 other versions of Adam that didn't work. And finally they finally got it right, they thought. And, you know, I studied the Bible. I mean, I was ordained minister. I know exactly what I'm and then when it triggered for me was like, wow, I read the book of Zechariah. And here is this minor prophet of God, of Jehovah, and he's talking to an angel. I think it was Michael. And while they were talking on the mountain, a flying saucer comes up, piloted by 2 women with a guy in the center, and they gave the there was a scroll exchange, and then the saucer left and went back to Sumer. So this is in the Old Testament. So
Right.
no one, where's your cognition skills? All right, so you want to ask the question first, are a flying saucer, well, they called it a flying scroll is what they called it. Well, it
Right.
would have that same type of thing. So I don't know. It tells me that they have jacked with us. It apparently they continue. The whole idea of the fallen angels for me is that it was a genetic attack on the human species. Our bloodline was forever contaminated. The DNA had been altered.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, the God that we supposedly said created the universe is limited and cannot correct that of his own doing. It was his fault. It was his angels, not ours. We were just down here, smoking a joint and just having some wine and cheese, and they came and blew the party up.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's the thing. So you can't get your logic from the Bible and be logical because it's been
Hell no.
too many times. It's so revised. It's always being revised. I mean, people
Yeah, even
don't
now.
realize. Yeah. How about when you look, to I don't want to go down the Talmud role because it could be very, very touchy. And the stuff that's in the Talmud is stuff that will probably take all the blood away from your face and make you.
Yeah, it takes the big boy britches to go through the tumult.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I have a copy. We have a copy.
I have one.
In the 80s, it's like I was like obsessed with this. I got to get to the root. I got to find out everything I can about the books that were left out purposely. Why did they leave them out? And so, the Nag Hammadi and all that. And then it leads into other,
That's why the rabbi told me, do the Jewish people a favor. Don't convert.
yeah.
If you read the tumult, you'll get what I'm talking about. But
yeah, no, there is so much in there that would actually shock you. But the reality is, if you really read into it, especially a Babylonian Talmud, you'll see everything that was in the Biden administration. It's all right there. I mean, that's living verification and being put into effect. And I should probably leave it there and go back to the giant cities of Bashan.
Well, can I just inject with that? Jonathan Cahn, in his new book, I mean, it actually came out 2 years ago. He believes firmly that these ancient Mesopotamian gods have returned, literally, in physical form.
Well, the scary stuff is some of the stuff that Cindy's gotten, especially more recently. which she may not even remember because she's under in full trance often. And I feel that the timelines that we're on is maybe one in which we don't see the complete manifestation of the Deagle numbers, which is a good thing. We'll take that.
Thank you.
However, I think that there's a timeline in which humanity realizes the bigger picture faster, which brings about the direct intervention of those mythological beings that are not mythological at all.
Well, Mike, when you just said that, this thought literally hit me that in another timeline, the Deagle prediction is happening. I just trust that it's not like you said, it's not this one. I really, because it's a frightening scenario. It's kind of the reason why, when you look at what's taking place, there is something that somebody knows. We're in this digital prison, literally. I mean, the fact that the three of us are on the internet, it means that we have an IP address. To me, that's just the internet prison number.
There you go. Internet prison IP. That's great. I never
Mhm.
made that correlation there. But have you ever listened to Klaus? Because Klaus, at the WF, he
Yeah.
openly tells their new recruits, "Hey, when you die, we're going to have a total copy of you, a total copy of your consciousness that's going to be uploaded onto our web forever, up to our net, up to the cloud, and a copy of you will be there forever." It's like, wow, thank you.
Creepy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's one of those things like, so you telling me that I should believe that there's at least going to be immortality waiting for me, at least on some level? N no, I like the organic suit, I'm hoping that the soul is just of the same, sort of matter because, and this is just me, when I look at all this containment that they're doing to us, I swear they're trying to take capture of our literal souls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
They
mean,
are.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
that's the ultimate goal. We talked about that today on our video I put up on Evolutionary.
See?
And it was all channeled after meditation. I was doing mantras and meditation for about a half hour or so, and the whole video just came to me. So I kind of hogged it, but it just felt like that's what maybe my higher self wanted to get across. And that is, they're trying to. They want us for our source spark because, we are the most powerful energy source out there. So this is what they're trying to do, is to hijack us and to utilize our energy. And yeah, they'd love to have us totally hooked in, body, mind, every single way possible into the system. When we look to the Anunnaki, those ones that came here, what do you see? You see they are like, take what Elon has envisioned and go thousands of years ahead. That's what they are. They're trapped. They're so AI infused throughout their body. They're really nothing to be admired. That's the big thing. They think of us like bugs and insignificant, but at the same time, they're jealous and envious. Which, isn't there some of that in there in the Bible? The line of theory with behind some of the fallen angel. Again, angel, messenger, and there are angels. There are actual angels.
I've
But
seen one.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
At Grace Church, I can tell you exactly back in 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congregation, there was over 1,000 people, and over a dozen other people saw the same being. And I've never forgotten that. I mean, I can look at it today and equate that, well, I could have just as well have seen an alien as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's been a lot of misunderstanding there because, as I would say years ago, trying to explain to people that were of a more fundamentalist mindset, there are angels, there are angelic beings that are here to support the natural matrix, natural world, the original true creator. and our experience in this natural matrix. And then there are also these demonic forces that act like parasites that want to just suck and leech off of us and trap us. But
And they're there.
they are, but then there's still extraterrestrials, and there's interdimensionals, and there's ultra terrestrials. So there are, I asked again last night when she was under trance, to the Galactic Federation contacts that we have. And I said, is it correct that what we see and know of the Earth is only about 20-25%? And she verified it yet again. So I've asked that like 5 times and keep getting the same answer. Yeah, Earth is much bigger than what they show us.
I was in the deliverance ministry like for years, where we cast out demons, you know.
Mhm.
We would I was in a prison ministry, and we would go in there with couples and right into, general population. And it was really interesting because, of course, then, I was all about casting out, those demonic entities, and how some humans, how some of them were possessed. They would never get near us. They would literally run out of the general population out. So, and on the street, I can tell you more than a couple of times, actually had one person come up and try to begin to put a sigil in the palm of my hand,
Wow.
and immediately rebuked it. But so, and how I look at it today, I was just interacting with another set of species that occupy the same space time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was relying on the Holy Spirit, quote unquote, with the gifting I had of being able to see into the spirit realm,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which will drive you freaking nuts if you don't know what you're doing, kids.
Right.
So don't try it at home.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, part of like our energy work, the first thing we do is always clear. So,
Clear,
yeah,
clear,
the first thing you do in Qigong is purgation of negative, stagnant energies and entities. So, that's just part of what we do, energy wise. And we've worked on people from all over the world. I mean, we have regular clients that are in Asia, Australia. Yeah, we've worked on people in Africa, many in Europe, both Americas. Distance doesn't matter. Everything is connected in one
No.
energy field. So
sometimes there is a time delay, though. I've noticed that. It's interesting. Sometimes it's immediate, and sometimes it might be 20 seconds after we start. Sometimes it might be 2 minutes.
and sometimes it's even before we have the
Sometimes it's
appointment.
even before we have the appointment. People are saying, "Are you doing something to us?" And we're like, "No," but if the guides and the angels have made a deal, then they're doing it now. So if the person makes the intent and schedules, books the appointment, sometimes the healing starts then. So
Yeah.
and that's really interesting. I call it time bending. I had a really beautiful person that I was working with long term, and sometimes she needed help right away. And she would text me, and I might not be able to sit down and do all the things immediately, but I made the intention, as soon as I get home, I'm going to do this. And she would start feeling it. So
Yeah.
I go home, I start doing the things, it's our intention is so strong. And when we talk about CERN and portals and things of that nature, I've seen our intention in real time, and it's incredibly powerful. We can make those portals too. We can open them, we can close them, but we also have to remember there's karmic consequence in that too. You kind of need to know what you're doing, in my opinion.
Would agree.
Yeah. So time bending, it's a thing, and the energy and how things occur in this quantum world we live in, I think is fascinating. I've got to see a lot of it, and boy, it's been a great ride. It's been incredible.
One of my Bible teachers, Lester Summerall, back in the day, he really had a pretty good handle on this other species that we share this space-time with. And we didn't use the word space-time, but he knew about the angelics, he knew about the demonics. And there was a session that he taught on that in the spirit realm, time is what he said is he said the fluidity of time is that you can see, there's an influence of the past as there is an influence to the future that you can see, and then there's the present. And he said these spirit beings live in that realm. Some live in a space where they can see the immediacy of the future. There's others who live in the past. And his taught teachings on that is that that's where you sometimes find familiar spirits. These are spirits that attach themselves to people when they come into this realm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they literally they mirror you as you
Yeah.
continue to grow. So I don't know. It's a fascinating thought. Just
It is. There's both good and good and negative, entities that can attach to us, and
hmm
of many different types. That Josiah Porter is the name of that guy, Reverend Josiah Porter. Original publication was 1865, but you could actually you could see PDFs for free from 1867 online, talking about the giant cities of Bashan. And I was right around that time period, I was rereading the Chaldean Genesis, which some of it reads like almost verbatim our Genesis. The only difference is instead of saying God, it literally will say things like Marduk, and Ninhursag, Ningishita.
hmm
These different entities are named in different places by different names instead of just God, Lord, God, Lord. So that's what they've done is they monotheized it, and we recognize that. There was a whole classification of scribes in Judaism, and their tradition. That's all they ever did was revise the scriptures. They would constantly revise and rewrite the scriptures, constantly editing as they needed to. It's right in front of our. It's in it's right out there in the open.
It
So
is.
you might have to ask, well, why are they constantly editing? Are they trying to hide, or are they really trying to get to the true, you know, what really is meant, or are they trying to hide what really is meant by that? So I think it's fascinating to see it, and then we get into the timelines like you were talking about. The time that we see, linear time, is a construct for us embodied when we're fully awake and conscious. But this is what I think triggered a whole bunch of bots to attack us in a video the other day. Is when we're outside, even if we're just in the astral in 4D without the physical body, you can move forward and backwards. So then it goes to um, it goes to open up the line of thinking that, are they, the control system, constantly sending, entities, or trying to create wormholes, or manipulating from fourth density the past in order to change our present timeline? And I think the answer is yes. I think they are. I think they're always trying to. And I think this is what we have with the Mandela effect.
So I'm writing this down as you're talking. So prophecy, if you look at it, is it really impacting the future or is it really impacting the past? If I spoke a prophecy over you and Cindy and said in whose ever name I see such and such and such, am I really speaking the future as I am more importantly beginning to inject the prophecy into your past because it's your past that's going to reflect what you just heard as to what you're going to anticipate? Does
I
that
think,
make sense?
Yeah,
well,
no, oh, yeah.
I love it because you are able to take in all these possibilities and bypass the human mind, because the human mind wants to just say, okay, I can do one thing, but you already know you can do many things at once. That's cool. So,
Yeah. Hmm. I've met myself coming and going,
yeah.
literally.
I think we're going to go down the uh, rabbit hole, wormhole of doing. I think when we got to just set aside the time to create meditations and do some more guided work trying to help people to bring more clarity. Again, I'm not sure how many people have the ability to literally recreate a place in space time in your mind. Can you guys that are listening tell us, can you go back to, say, if you were awake then, 1973, and recreate being in bed on, whatever, Christmas Eve, 1973, thinking about your presents? Can you recreate the feel of the room? Can you see where things are in the room? Can you feel the blankets? Can you recreate the smells? These are the type of exercises that you'll go into when you study some of yoga, and you go down that path of meditation. Meditation is not always just trying to have a blank mind. There's a lot of different things we could do, from gather life force. That's one of my primary meditations, is drawing in life force. I do that every day. But also, you could go back into any point in space time and try to recreate in your mind. These are good exercises for our consciousness and starting to gain control over our consciousness. There's different techniques with lucid dreaming. Keep a dream journal. As soon as you wake up, jot things down. And I'm guilty of not jotting things down because I remember things pretty well now, but I used to, going back to being a kid. And that's also where sometimes I'll find out I did prophesize something. And because all of a sudden I'll read back and say, whoa, I saw this. I wrote it down, on this date. And then here we are. It's pretty wild.
So I have a question on, was it Christmas Eve, 1973? I need to know what time because I'm right there. And so I need to know, was it like noon? Because in fact, I was going to get married New Year's Eve. So I
Wow.
am right there now, back in Spring, Texas with my future in-laws, and they have this rather really large house, but they have this sunken den, and it has this really red thick carpet, and so we're sitting down there. So I'm there about 5:30 right now in the evening. So
Awesome.
is that how you
Yeah.
do it?
Yeah, you could do that, and
Yeah.
then try to get into and actually hear if you're sitting there in the room and there's
I can
conversation.
see my ex-mother-in-law, Barbara. I can see her right now. Just yeah.
I feel that, like, if Barbara has passed on, for instance,
Long time ago.
yeah, so that could be a direct hook to where you can start to communicate to her on the other side. Or if she is reincarnated, you could still end
Who
up
knows?
having some sort of connection. And, again, even if somebody's not embodied, we could still connect with them there, and we could actually have conversations in dream time and eventually remember them.
Yeah, I was 18 and she told me I was the most unusual person she'd ever met. So anyway, um, see, I like that. I can do that very easily, and it's in the future, as well. But
Hmm.
anyway, I used to
Yeah.
do a lot of running, and back when I lived in Colorado, and I'd get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and I would run for about an hour, hour and a half, and that's where I did a lot of my deep meditation uh,
Hmm.
because there was no one out there, and it was, yeah, pretty cool.
Well, meditation could be just that. It could be pondering. It could be, just reflecting. There's so many different ways you could do things, and I don't think there's any definitive right or wrong. Again, if you have certain goals in mind, there might be some techniques that are more effective and a straighter line to achieving those goals. But just taking the time to unplug and listen to ourselves and our team that is around us, because we all have spirit guides, whether we acknowledge them
Yeah,
or not.
I've given mine a run for their money. Can you believe this guy? But
As
it's
we should. We should.
as we should.
Yeah.
And this is the threat. You're right. And you talk about, the shadow banning and then, all the nonsense that, you come out with, these golden nuggets of truth. And if people begin to take that in and adapt that to their journey, um, it creates something that they can't get to. It's literally, in my spirit eye, it's literally a shield. It repulses the tendency that captures so many other souls, so many other humans very easily. And although we're in the goo, so to speak, we know that we're just stepping through it. It's not a part of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. It's recognizing that even with our, our thoughts, it's recognizing the train of thoughts, and then you gain control over repetitive patterns that you may
Yep.
not even notice. Again, each person's unique, and no one style suits all. So that's a big realization.
It's so true, so true. I appreciate y'all because it's like being on the memory train, and and as the conductor, I get to move it forward or I can move it back. I can
Yes,
move
you
it
can.
forward, I can go slow, I can go really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So as we close out this has been great. What do y'all see kind of in the next week? I mean, it's really becoming very quickly now as the chapters seem to be passing.
Oh gosh, I see AI has really started to take front and center. So that's what I see coming up in the next week, probably some headlines of some kind when it comes to the AI. I see this Pope coming online now. When I looked into his energy, he has a very unusual energy. It's almost like he is going to be swayed. There's a darkness and a light about him, and he could go either way. His energy is very unusual. What I see, and you should see in everybody, is the duality, but it's really strong in him. So I don't know what's going to come of that. It's almost like the darkness could hook on to something that could drag us on some weird timeline, but I want to just keep the positive thoughts rolling and, keep working, doing things like we're doing now and co-creating our reality the way we want to. So,
Yeah, I mean, to me, the impression I get looking at him is he's not strong. He's, like Cindy is saying,
we need to do his chart.
very easily
Good point.
swayed, and
Yeah.
maybe that's done purposely because he'll be a really good puppet without his own thoughts and input.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm getting in the back of my head is that is the ideal candidate for the puppet master.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I
we
see
need
you over
to.
here. Don't watch what's going on there.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do, and that's why they would get the World War going, because too many things getting too close to being revealed too fast, then they have to put us on our heels, so to speak.
I'm just giving some thought. Y'all want to get together again next Thursday?
I would like it.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it
Please.
might be fun. We could just see how the spirit flows, but the idea, you know, I like the idea of the counterattack. They may have their plan, but we have our plan too.
Yep.
And we just got to get a little bit more vocal about resisting this, whatever this is.
Well, let's start here, because what brought us in today was the idea of the real ID. And the little bit that I learned about it is we should push back if we can. And if you can go to your local DMV and say, hey, I want to trade this in for a state license or a different kind of ID. If you don't have a license, we can still do that. So, I mean, it might not solve everything, but it's troublesome for them.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get like notifications and they'll keep asking me different apps, different things. Don't you want to, use a biometric ID? Don't you want to take a picture of your face? Don't you want your
It'll be
fingerprint?
so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't see the value in that. You don't want somebody accessing, like if they picked up your bank card or something. I mean, unless they cut off your finger and they can't get to it, I mean, I can understand that, but the reality is, The problem is that really the ones we have to be the most concerned about is the power structure itself. It's not really each other. Sure, I mean, I think, yeah, there are some people that tend to go down that dark path a little easier than others, but on the whole, I really do believe that most people would inherently go onto the good path. I really think it's manipulating and it's, nudging and tempting that we have more and more people that go the route of going down what we might call a darker path in life. But I don't think it's the majority of us. I really don't. And that's where the leadership of this world doesn't feel human or humane so much. It feels very, very demonic.
I think the Freudian slip was right. It's not. I remember 20 years ago, I was developing payment systems, and we had just broke through major technology in bringing pay to the table to restaurants in the United States. And one of the applications that we were looking for the system was a biometric function. And there was a competitor of ours that was using, their company was called Pay by Touch. So I got certified in biometrics and how to begin to adapt it ergonomically for interface for payment. And what I discovered through the application, and it's advanced many, 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 many times, is that it's literally taking the uniqueness of who and what you are and digitizing it into the machine. And from there, they've tagged you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but anyway, it was
But
very.
that's going back to that, them making a copy of you thought that's so much.
We didn't realize it at the time. For us, it was like, we had a system that was kick ass, and the venture capitalists were like, it kicks ass. And anyway, so we kicked ass. Yeah. I just love y'all. This is just so much fun. Tell people where they can find y'all at.
Oh, okay. Well, we're over on Evolutionary Energy Arts on YouTube, and that's the same as our website, evolutionaryenergyarts.com. You can learn a little more about what we do, the readings we do, a little more about us. We flow, so we adjust to what people need. So sometimes people don't know what they need. They just hear, I'm supposed to be a Daiki here and I need to contact you. We hear that a lot. And a lot of times that's to remove blocks so they have direct contact with their guides, angels, or loved ones. So
I think, again, what's unique about us is the dynamics of both of us. Cindy is such an intuitive. She's like Whoopi Goldberg from Ghost, where the ghosts literally line up because they know she could see them and they could have direct communication. So she's been able to find people on the other side. I've said things like I was curious about Aleister Crowley, and so she's like, next thing I know, Aleister Crowley's answering me because she's mediuming him. And
how is he, by the way?
He's still working off some karma.
He's arrogant. He's arrogant.
He
has. I get that vibe, that energy. Yeah.
Yes,
he is.
Yes.
He is very, very. But I mean, he was used by the Draco. He was used. His contact was a gray, and so he feels like he was a big sucker, and they used him, which he's kind of working off now before he incarnates again. So it might be a while before he incarnates.
He's very angry about.
I was going to say, is he pissed off?
Yeah, he is. He is. But
yeah, I could dig that.
Certain type of energy that he didn't appreciate getting taken advantage of, but he did. So he's trying to do different. I do hear that he's wanting to come in actually in a golden age. So we'll see.
Yeah, but he's an interesting character. He did have a lot of insights. But that's just one, because I mean, again, I've asked her so many times about different people that we've been able to contact and get some interesting info, which we've shared sometimes. Sometimes, honestly, I forget to share it with people, which is really, I got to work on that. And then,
that's cool stuff there. Like, come on, that's kind of stuff that, it's like, yeah, I could sit down with a cup of coffee, tea, whatever. And Yeah, you've
we
got
never
my
know who
attention,
we're
you
gonna
know?
get.
Well, yeah, we could do that. I mean, I was
Yeah.
reading Morals and Dogma, and I asked her about Albert Pike. Next thing you know, Albert Pike's coming through. So, and he's another one that feels very similar to Crowley. The system used him. And so yeah, we have a lot of topics, different upcoming lives that we could go down.
People don't lose their personality when they leave the body. They are who they are.
When you go up, if you go up to 5D, there's changes.
There's change.
5DU is way bigger and more expansive than 4DU. 4DU is really the same person, just you have an expanded viewpoint. You could reflect, you could see different things, but 5DU is a much bigger, much different being in many cases.
Yeah, because see, I saw the 70s coming, so I had to calculate exactly when I could hitch a ride in. So
yeah, right. Mike is a heck of a power pusher when it comes to energy. He's the muscle behind everything else. I
love it. You can sense it.
And we work together, and I guess you could say we bring balance with the energy work. It is the masculine and the feminine coming together, which might make
we complement each other so naturally. And
we work hard to be our best for whoever's coming in. We take good care of ourselves, and so
it's working.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, continue.
Okay.
That's my prophetic thing.
You.
It's like, yeah, thanks, man. All right. Love you guys. See you next Thursday.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, y'all make sure, if you haven't subscribed, do it, obviously, and make sure to follow them and send them a little love. It's lonely sometimes, when they do that type of spirit work. I mean, so send them a little love. Drop them an email. Say, hey, we really appreciate y'all. And, that's the kind of thing. Because there's more than one person listening to me you need a little good karma. So sow a seed. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We love you. See you the next time we get together. Mike and Cindy, thank you both. Much love to you. Speak prosperity over you two. I see it happen.